Welcome to Madame Tortuga's Lounge. I'm your host, Dottie the Psychic, and we're just going to get through this episode. Obviously, I'm changing my format. It's going to be a mess for a while, and I'll probably derail by the time I get it right. But here we are, folks. I've always wanted to do a podcast. I want to bring back my old school content. Let's do this. Still working on that intro. But the Ostara I'm talking about, there is an Ostara event in Charleston, West Virginia at the UUC, March 23rd, from noon to 5. We're going to have all sorts of cool things going on. Pepperoni roll sweets contest, pepperoni roll contest, sweets contest, egg hunt, crafts, merchants, rituals, cool stuff, pagan stuff. In this episode, there are some things I want to touch on, and some things that I am going to touch on and then swiftly move away from because I don't want to talk about it yet. What I do want to talk about is Ostara. I want to talk about Metro Valley Pagan Pride, the big survey, and some of the things that I am going to try and do with the content, both here and on my website and everything. Because I have been in a bit of a funk for about 3 months. And during that 3 months, I have had periods where I was more stable. But honestly, like, everything dried up. Like magic. I will do a whole video. One of these days, I'm going to do a whole video on dealing with dark energies coming from other people, coming from inside of ourselves. But I don't want to be in the middle of dealing with that when I do. And this, with Ostara coming up, is when I am usually coming out of my seasonal depression. And it's just a cold, hard fact. I think that it may be prudent for me in the future to actually schedule a down season for the holidays and then plan to come back in March, because I do this to myself and it hurts my soul. It really does. I hate that it just feels like for 3 months out of the year that I cannot get my feet under me, and then I'm clawing to get my feet back under me, and when I do, I'm back to square one. And it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And that's just something that is part of the Dottie experience. But I'm usually coming out of that at this time of the year, because a lot of the pagan holidays are based on the wheel of the year. Yeah, think about it. Of course, Yule is the winter solstice. There's the summer solstice, which has a pagan name that I can't remember off the top of my head. I remember this, like the solstice and the equinox, and then I will remember the holidays in between, the quarters, the eights of the year. And that's because it is the wheel of the year, and I think it's a Wicca. So a lot of paganism it's poorly defined. It has no central dogma, which is great. But there is like an understood dogma, which is nice, but also very difficult to define. Like, you can practice whatever holidays you want, but as a group, we tend to celebrate the wheel of the year. And we just got past Imbolc, and we're going into Ostara, and this is usually about the time where I'm finally able to shake that depression. There's a whole crossover between Ostara and Easter, and I'm not touching it. Okay? I'm not touching it. We may do that for solstice. That may be my Yule present to you next year, at the end of this year. But we're not doing that right now. No. Not today. It is a conversation worth having, because I do think people tend to get a little hostile. It is a little of a hostile conversation that needs to be had, but I'd rather have that conversation before I go into depression rather than trying to come out of a depression on that note. Okay? That's just where we are, folks. That's just where we are. We're going to survive this episode. We're going to get through this episode. We're going to get this episode really rough cut put together, and we're going to get this episode out, because we are going to fucking persevere. By all the gods, I will not be taken down that easily. Oh, that felt good. That felt cathartic. So, Ostara is the time to plant. Like they say, to plant your potatoes on St. Patrick's Day. And you think about it, this is the planting season. This is the time to get things in the ground. They're starting to sprout. So this is the time to turn over your fields and get the seeds in the ground. If you're planning on starting a garden, now's the time to do it. Like, really. And that's part of, like, the pagan tradition, is that return to earth. The return to natural cycles. Which I probably need to take more to heart. And maybe just start taking off between Yule and Ostara and just saying, like, look, this is some me time. I'll be back in March. That may be something that I do in the future, honestly, because I am really looking at my life pattern, and I'm usually keeping it together, trucking along until November. And about Thanksgiving is about the time I usually derail. Right before the major holidays. And then I am just, like, surviving the winter best I can. And then about March, I start feeling better. The sun starts coming out. It starts getting warmer. The plants, I start to see green. If you notice, like, if anybody who watches my Facebook and things, you'll start to see more pictures of plants and things sprouting. And that's kind of what Ostara is about. It's that emerging from the cold and dark and living again. And it's been interesting to, having been raised sort of Christian, like, if you know what I mean, like, it's just not that serious in the household. My dad called himself an unorthodox, non-denominational heathen before that became a thing of its own. Before heathen meant somebody who was studying the Nordic mythology, it was just another word for wild child. And, to have no religion. Mom, on the other hand, would occasionally go to church. There were periods in her life where she went pretty devoutly, like every Sunday. And there were also long expanses of her life where she didn't go at all. And, we'd go with Mom on occasion to, like, the Methodist church. I think it was Methodist. I think we were Methodist. I know that we were baptized. We were, like, christened. One of my siblings was actually baptized. There you go. Obviously, I was not. I came out to my grandmother's preacher one fine Sunday and told him that I am a witch. I was 16 years old. I remember it fondly, although I'm sure the rest of the family was a little mortified. I'm like, I figured out who I am, and I'm happy to tell you. But just that, and I still get joy from that memory, and part of that is probably the bitch in me, the pedant in me that was entertained by the amount of preaching I got. Just for me. Like, 2 other people came and got me in a dark little weird room, and like, okay, this is strange. Like, Nothing you read to me out of that book is going to make a difference because I don't believe in the book. Like, sorry. I appreciated the effort. It's nice to be wanted, but not with the Bible. It is what it is, y'all. And the family was as supportive as they could be. Like, really, at times it was entertaining. There was a whole lot of just, we just didn't rub it in their faces as much as I could have. But we actually had, and Dad had a very spiritual side. So we learned more about spirituality. He didn't like the Wicca pagan thing. He thought it was dark. Whatever. Just whatever, man. Like, it's family. They were as supportive as they could be. I do think they thought that I was a little insane, but they let me have my books, and I read them. They were the only things I would read, so they let me read them. That's nothing to do with Ostara. I'm talking about Ostara. So, that was a lot about my personal history, which is not what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about Ostara, which is the vernal equinox. I don't know if it's the vernal equinox itself, or if this is because I think Ostara is the 21st, and the vernal equinox is an actual astrological event that varies from year to year. So, this year, it's actually on the 19th at 11:06. And I didn't put that whether that was AM or PM, because I definitely want to try and balance an egg. I've always heard that you can balance an egg on the equinox. And I actually know somebody who took a picture where they'd balance the egg. I'm like, I don't know. I may try to balance an egg tonight and then try to do it on the equinox and see if I can do it both times or just on the equinox. But I've also heard you can do that at the equator. That you can balance the egg on the equator because of the gravitational pull. I don't know. Like I said, I did know somebody who took a picture of them. It was on the butt. They got the pointy top and then the rounded bottom, and they were able to balance on the bottom of that egg. So I don't see why not. It could be interesting. Should have to try that. What I got in here? So start your gardens. This is a good time to start your garden. The sun is waxing, so it's a good time to... You know what? This is a great time for manifestation. Use this full moon coming up, because it'll be coming around by the time this is coming out. But on the way to... When is the full moon? Cut this. So the moon is going to be right around the first quarter during the equinox. So that's some interesting manifestation energy. Let's break out the manifestation for Ostara. Bring out the good vibes. I'll be 38 by then. This year, more than ever, because I'm engaged. We're actually getting married on Beltane. But because of that, this has been the first time that I've really, really done things for pagan holidays. Really, really took the time and invested in the pagan holidays and thought about them and tried to take a day, maybe not the day of the actual event, maybe not the actual holiday, but a day around that holiday with my fiance or other family and friends or other pagans and celebrated the wheel of the year. It's kind of hard to keep up. It really is. But this one, Imbolc always kind of smacks me in the face. I am never I am never prepared for Imbolc. And it's kind of, it's just about dead center of the time of year that I'm usually in full seasonal depression. So it almost always just kind of smacks me in the face, and I try to pull it together, but rarely actually manage. I'm like, yay, there it goes. It's like Groundhog's Day. It's not Groundhog's Day, which we'll bring that up when we talk about the crossover holidays. We will have a whole conversation, but we're not doing that right now, right? Exactly. You know, I mean, it's a fertility holiday, obviously. Things are starting to sprout. This is a heavy time. This is a great time to start manifesting what you want to see in the new year. Literally planting the seed of what you want to grow. I'm about to go throw some change in the dirt. A little more ceremonious than that, but I really might go stick a quarter, like, just outside of my front lawn, like, oh, the fancy garlic flowers, and a quarter. Why not? It is what it is, folks. We get by. Okay, so, like, that's the thing. It is that time of the year. And also, since we're here, I know I'm going to kind of shoehorn some announcements in here somewhere, because there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the pagan community, but I wanted to talk about, we're actually doing an Ostara event with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charleston on March 23rd, and we're going to have like egg hunts for the kids. We're going to try to get some painted eggs. We actually have a series of announcements that get posted to mvpaganpride.org. And those same announcements gets into the Facebook. But if you're a voting member or an affiliate, then we will send them right to you. So if you're interested in those announcements, rather than telling you the announcements here and not getting this video out in time for those things to have happened, or they've already happened, time is a very strange thing, especially on a content platform thingy. I need more sleep. Go check out Metro Valley Pagan Pride. It's mvpaganpride.org. So it's going to be an actual family-friendly pagan event, which is nearly unheard of, really. Like, that's something we're trying to bring to the community, is an actual sense of community. That's kind of the whole point of Metro Valley Pagan Pride, is to start to bring people together over something deeper, over our individual faith, but also over our shared experience as pagans, you know? All gods are welcome. Most of them. Some of them are assholes. One of the things that we did learn in the survey is that about half of the community has kids, which is kind of part of what sparked this, because there's not a lot of kids stuff there's not a lot of stuff for pagan kids out there. Not really. It's a lot of it's no wonder that a lot of pagan kids want to go to Bible camp, because that's where all the other kids are. So building something that is actually for pagan children is something kind of novel. And that's a section that I'm hoping we're actually going to start tackling. I don't know what that looks like yet, but we're kind of starting with this. We've kind of started with our events, acknowledging that there are children there, making things for children, which is kind of one of the things that is standard for a pagan pride. The Central Pagan Pride had like a whole thing. We had a whole thing, like, it's kids activities. Every event should have kids activities. And this kind of event is actually centered around the kids. So this should be interesting. Let's take a quick break here. I am actually going to pause it and just breathe for a second. And then we're going to come back and talk about the survey. Palms, cards, crystal ball. I read them all. And you can get your reading at dottiephepsychic.com. Eventually, I'm going to put a real commercial here, but probably not until this video is just forgotten by age. You can also check out some really cool stuff going on at mvpaganpride.org, where you can sign up to be a voting member or an affiliate. And for voting members, you get a copy of Metro Valley Pagan Press, and you get the right to vote in things. We got a little website page set up just for y'all. If you're an affiliate, it's a little more expensive. This is for metaphysical professionals. If you're an affiliate, you get a free ad in said paper and reduced or free entrance to certain events. Meaning MV Pagan Pride events. That's the certain events. Our events. Y'all, we are persevering. That's the theme. We're living to fight a whole nother day. Here we are, upright and mobile. Yay! Okay, and we're back. So, first of all, if you don't know what Metro Valley Pagan Pride is, then where have you been? Like, we've got a whole newspaper and everything. We're rocking and rolling. Down to the beach I went strolling. I'm not sorry. Right now. It's kind of amazing. It really is kind of amazing. We have a newspaper that is just phenomenal, and that's mostly thanks to, we have several people who are volunteering articles once a month, once a moon cycle. I just realized how little time I have to finish this article. Like 4 days. I have turned it in a whole day late, and I am not proud of that fact. I do not want to do that regularly. I would like to be done early. They did not get their article in time. In fact, they were 4 days late. And we're back. So let's talk about first. Let's talk about Metro Valley Pagan Pride itself. Metro Valley Pagan Pride is a community organized for pagans by pagans. It is, and it comes with all the pagan problems. Like, there's still, I'm sure that there's drama from before I was born. Because it is a community, it is a small community, and there are people out in the mountains who will never associate with the pagans who would be a part of a community like this, and that's fine, because it's just a lot of, people are independent. It is very, very individualistic religion, but there's still that want and need for community space, to kind of bounce ideas, to talk things out, to not feel so alone. Because it's very important to have that alone time, but it's also really nice to have other people who aren't going to look at you like you're crazy. Like, let's face it, that's the big thing. Nobody really wants to try and have a deep philosophical conversation with somebody who is indoctrinated with anything to the point that they try to make you feel like an idiot for believing what you believe. And that's not directed at Christianity particular. They're definitely, because I mean, we have Christians in the pagan community, and I feel like I say this all the time, and I want to do a whole video on the pagan Christian relationship, but not today. Not today, Satan. But also, there are other people who are equally dogmatic about dumb shit. Even in the pagan community. Like, we all know that one person who is thoroughly convinced that they know exactly how the universe works, and you can't tell them shit. And it's fine as long as it works for them. But we're also making space for that asshole. We really are, because they need community too. And that's what Metro Valley Pagan Pride is. It is a pride. It is about coming together and being stronger as a community and watching out for each other and providing support for each other and that sort of thing. As part of that, we now have a newsletter. And we have somebody editing it all together. Lisa and Mel have really, really stepped up. I want to give them a special shout out. If you're listening, you should be damn proud of what you've accomplished. It's amazing. Not last episode, but the episode before that, or edition before that, I put out a survey. And it's funny because I wrote the article itself in like probably 3 hours, and it was a bit crap. But I had taken all the time that I would normally have put into the actual survey, or into the actual article, and put it into the survey. So the actual article was not my best work. So the survey, there were problems, but also I'm really kind of proud of it because I don't think anybody has done this sort of thing in the community. There were parts of it that were ruined because I didn't know how to instruct people. And so we persevere. 52 people responded. No, 54. Because I think we've got like 54 total responses. Which is nice. It really is nice to get that many responses. But it's also a very small pool of people. I know there are more. Partially because there were like 2 waves of responses because I put it out for a month. So when I first blasted it out, a bunch of people took the survey. And then I blasted it out again, and another bunch of people took the survey. But it's still a limited sample. And that's just the nature of the beast. It's still pretty decent sized sample. It's not small for the size of community we have, but it's limited by multiple factors. One of which is who takes a survey on Facebook. That is more limiting than what you might think. I can definitely see, especially in results, I can see that it is more people who are, they're connected through Facebook. There's a lot of the pagan community that kind of shuns Facebook, which is part of why we started the newsletter, honestly. I know people in real life who refuse to Facebook, and the ones that do Facebook often do it, randomly. So there's not the only people who are going to see this survey are people who are more online. You can see in the results that it's more people who are more online are the ones who did a big chunk of the responding, because even if I provided an answer, a lot of times people would still put in the other space an answer that was already provided. It happened quite a bit. Whatever. But there were apparently a couple of questions that I maybe should have provided more options. I didn't know what options were needed, and I just left an other space. But for what religions you generally identify with, one of the ones that came up pretty often that I would never have thought about was omnist. I know a couple people who are omnists. Omnist. I am not entirely sure how to pronounce that word. Omnist. That sounds better. Omnist. But basically, they believe that all religion, all faith has a seed of truth. They're very agreeable people. Most of the Omnists I know are super cool. They are super cool. And if I go to do the survey again, I will include that option. There was the question of race. I am very white. I have only really paid attention to surveys that I have taken, and that's what I drew on to put the race question together, because I do want Metro Valley Pagan Pride to be comfortable for everybody. And finding out what percentage of our community does not identify as white, I got some interesting responses. A lot of people filling in the other column, and one person actually referred to themselves as something that I would never refer to another human being as, and I want to apologize if that was an angry response to the question, because I would never put a slur as an option on a survey. Then it's just that broke my brain a little bit. I'm like, I don't know how I could have done better. I think I know how I could do better now. I didn't know how I could do better. I thought I had covered the bases in the area. I did not. I didn't feel comfortable putting it in there in the first place, but honestly, it is something I want to know that we are actually bringing in people from all walks of life. You know, that's important, that my friends feel welcome. All of them. Wow. So that was a white girl moment. Thank you all for sharing that with me. Fuck my life. So that was the one that hurt. Somebody called themselves a pejorative on my essay on my survey, and I don't know if it was because I screwed up or not, and that hurts. And there's nothing I can do about it. It happened, and the data is out there, and I'm not going to alter the data to make myself look better, because that is not how shit works. I would rather be a slapdash mess than a liar. Just how it is. Probably find a better surveys platform. That's another conversation. What did we learn? Broadly speaking, what is your religion? Was one of the questions that made me want to smack people the most, because a lot of people put in they would type in one of the other choices, specifically pagan. Like, there was a whole different groups of polytheistic / pagan / heathen. Like, just pick one. Those are all options on there. I didn't have polytheist. I should have maybe just put polytheist instead of pagan and also true, since those are both polytheistic religions. But that leaves monotheistic religions. That being said, it was kind of a beautiful graph. I just aesthetically appreciate this graph, because it really does show something that I've known my whole life. My whole pagan life. That pagan dominant communities are never pagan exclusive. Like, we tend to draw other people in. We tend to make space. It's something that I've known. If we actually have a few Christian participants, One of the things I should have put in there was Christo-pagan. I think I will in the future. We did get quite a few spiritualists, which is pretty cool because it's kind of a precursor to modern paganism. It's a lot of where the seances and things, a lot of the spirit work that we do nowadays, a lot of that came from the spiritualist movement. Spiritualist? There's the accent. I also know that there's quite a few people that I just wanted to slap because they would just reword an option that was already in there. Like, just pick one, dude. And if you go back through and look at the data, you can see where some of us are somebody just straight up left it blank. They picked other and then left it blank, which might be an option. Blank may be an option next year. We'll see if I can get like a whole bunch of people who just blank. I don't know. Somebody wrote a paragraph. Did you convert to your spirituality? 75% of us converted to what we're doing now. That's 40 people out of the 52 that responded. And out of the quarter that's left, some of the responses, man, I'm glad I put the other as an option and let people just fill it in, because some of the stuff people have filled in is just funny. It's not so bad on this, but it is still, like, a lot of it is still kind of, like, converted to, like, I always felt like, this is the question, if I could go back and redo it, which I probably may eventually do, this particular question, I will clarify a lot. Because what I wanted to ask was, are you the only member in your household that practices your religion? Did you find your religion? I don't know. I don't know how I can clarify that question that is not going to get this kind of random responses. But also, there are 13% that are multi-generational. What I should have done, really, the question is, did you come from a pagan household? Were you raised in a pagan household? Would have been the question I would want to have asked there. But I didn't. I take a break. I'm not doing all this. We have a broad range of ages, which is cool. We've got a whole community, and it's kind of amazing to look at these numbers and see the whole community. Like the age ranges are. We've got somebody who answered this who is over 70 years old. And everybody else, like, it's from all over the age spectrum. I don't have anybody who's under 18. That's the only, out of the whole spectrum, that was the only one that didn't have any response. And only one person over 70. Those were the two that didn't get represented very well. Everybody else was pretty much all around the board, which is awesome. We've got people with military experience. The how do you identify question? I don't have a response for. It is nice to know that we have a pretty broad range of people in the community. Apparently mostly women. By far and away, like 38 of the 54 responses said that they were women. 7 said they were men, and 7 said they were non-binary. And all over the spectrum for sexuality and transness, And actually, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see how open the community is, how broad the community is, really. 42% have kids. That's a lot of families, and that's something that, like, I don't see a lot of pagan family support yet. So that's definitely telling us that we need to work on that. We're all broke. 4 people didn't even respond to how much they were making, but like 20, about a quarter of us are actually making bank. Everybody else is kind of broke. That's just the state of the world right now. I did learn that most of us are pretty out and proud. There's some horror stories about some things that people have had to deal with in the community. And I may publish those. But this is all going to be on mvpaganpride.org. I'm going to put the results link in there. So that's where you can find it if you want to really, really dig in. There is a lot to be learned from this. I was actually like, I don't know how to interpret some of this because some of it is kind of scary. Nearly half have experienced some sort of harassment. Online, whatever, which is kind of obscenely high. Most of us feel safe in our community at about, like, one of the biggest, pretty broadly, like, from 1 to 10. The question is, how safe do you feel when out in your community? 1 being afraid for your life, and 10 being completely safe. And we had, nobody is apparently afraid for their life. 1, 2, and 3 had nobody respond. But at 4, we've got 3, and it's almost even. It's kind of jagged. It's weird. Like, we got 11 people who can apparently walk naked down the street and feel fine. They're at a 10. Good for you. We've got 10 people at 5, which to me is a pretty high alert. Honestly. So there's some concerns It's worth figuring out what we could do to not just feel safer, but be safer in the community, because these numbers are actually kind of startling. Really. You wouldn't think that 25% would... 25% is a quarter of this. That's 1 of 4. This is, like, half. That didn't include online harassment, which can take an obscene number of forms, but that's still half. That says a lot. This one was an eye-opener. In the last year, has there been a specific incident that has happened to you or someone you know personally that made you feel unsafe because some part of your identity? A full quarter. Even the ones where people put in other, which I don't know why I gave them an option. Even the ones where people put in other, it was still not good. That's a full quarter. 75% of the people said no. Great for them. But that still leaves a full quarter of people who have witnessed or have been actively, had to actively deal with situations that made them feel unsafe. And I asked people what they were. And this section, more than any other section in this survey, the results from that section where people were able to write in their shit rattled me. Because there were a couple of them where I'm pretty sure I knew what they were talking about. And you can go back, and I've mentioned, glossed over some of them, but talked pretty deeply about others in my video on my main channel, where I think it's Speaking My Piece. Sometimes that's all you can do, speak your piece. So I'm pretty sure some of these situations that people are talking about are those situations. But there's others that I'm pretty sure are not, which means they didn't make it back to me. The greater community did not hear about these situations, which, people keep shit private. People don't want their business aired out, but it still means that there was a threat that went unidentified. Which is what it is. I'm going to read a couple of these and pick out some of my favorites for you. Okay, so somebody had their tires slashed by a shitty neighbor. This person knows multiple people who've been driven from their homes, had to relocate. Well, that's the nice way we're going to start saying fled. Had to relocate because of harassment. A whole host of microaggressions, bad legislation. Somebody's car got vandalized, stalked, and harassed. I feel like I know who that is. Kids getting bullied. This is an anonymous survey, and I feel like some of these situations I recognize, and so I want to elaborate on what I know, and that would not be right. That would not be right, because then that might alter the anonymity. I may actually talk to some of the people I think put some of these in here and see if they would talk about what happened more openly, but I can't make any promises or guarantees or anything on that, because some of this stuff is pretty heinous, like getting your tires slashed. I have no idea who that is. Somebody got their tires slashed by a shitty neighbor. And, we all know, we've all heard the microaggressions. Like, I'm pretty sure the reason that this 75% is so high is because people don't think about the microaggressions. People don't talk about the microaggressions. Not because, we do. Like, we make fun of the people who make the microaggressions. Usually, unless they get bad enough to have to deal with. Okay, the person with the tires things did apparently pan out. How would you describe the conversations with your family about religion? That's all over the place. That is so all over the place that, I can't tell you how all over the place it is. And, I actually tried to provide as many responses as possible. And there's still a whole plethora of others. People's acceptance in the home is broad. Some people really do feel safe and able to have a conversation. Like, I can have a conversation with my family. But I see where other people no longer speak to their family. One of the responses is I'll answer the phone, but I don't reach out. As a pagan, I have an inane sense of how not accepted in the general community paganism is. If you're not a pagan, then you probably don't know that paganism is not that accepted. I talked to, I don't know if she wants to identify as a pagan, but definitely a polytheistic person, a person of an alternative religion, and a person of color, told me that she'd been threatened to be lynched 10 times since she came to West Virginia. That was an eye-opener. That rattled me to the core. One of my friends, actually one of the shameless self-promotions that I've got recorded and have not edited because I've been down, is with my friend Ash, who relocated because he was afraid for his kid. Now, he's not a pagan, he's a Satanist. But he still had to relocate for the safety of his family. And I do not want that underplayed. That there are people who feel so unsafe in this environment that they are leaving. They're making a break for it. And that's disgusting. And disturbing. What do you do with that? What do I do for my friends? This rattled me to my core to look at some of these numbers, to see how all over the chart people's families' responses were, because that one, honestly, it blew my mind. It genuinely, in a way, blew my mind, because I have been fortunate, privileged even, but genuinely fortunate to have a family that, while they do not understand and may not approve, have in many ways kept their mouths shut and have at times really genuinely been amazingly supportive. Somebody forgot that this was supposed to be anonymous and called somebody out. I don't know what I'm going to do about that one. I don't know. I doubt anybody's going to figure out who that person is, even though they called them by name. Luckily, it's a fairly common name. Anyway, so that is what it is. Some of it's unusable. Some of it's unusable. It doesn't mean that it's bad, or we just, next time I will fix that. I will do better next time. Okay, folks. Yeah, obviously there's a part missing here. I have cut out the mental health and the addiction part of the survey, and I honestly ended up deleting them because, partially just because of the sample size and the limiting factor of where those surveys probably came from, but it didn't. I can see where somebody could have easily warped those to mean way more than they did, when the fact is, I'm not a cognitive psychologist, and this is not an imperial survey. Like, this is not, this is not the U.S. Census. This was a survey that I put together and threw out online, essentially. And as that, I've already talked about some of the problems with it. But because of that, I didn't think it was responsible to publish that data. That doesn't mean there's not a serious problem. It just means that it wouldn't be okay for me to put out what are essentially false numbers. And it really doesn't matter what those numbers were. Like, even if we got, like, only 10% of the population had mental health issues, or if it was 100% of the population that had mental health disorders, you couldn't use either one of those and say that the pagan community has this percent of mental health issues, and that's why I deleted it. It's just not usable. If I'd had like 200 people respond, then maybe I would have continued on with that data, but it didn't seem like it didn't seem cool, didn't seem all right, did not seem like it worked correctly. What can I say? So we scrapped it. That happened. That's just where it is. That happened. That data. Ooh, that data did not. Gonna reword that one next time. I am sorry. I am sorry. I do know that there is a need in the community. Um, and there is the Appalachian Pagan Ministry is trying to fill that need. Um, but we got to get more pagans to stand up and say they need pagan based recovery so that we can get that. So if you are interested in that, look up Appalachian Pagan Ministry. All right, folks, let's bring this train into the station. We had one last question I'd like to talk about. There were about 20 responses to the question, what pagan community programs would you like to see? And of course, some of these were too complicated for what we got going right now. But if you want to see the more complicated programs happen, then we're going to need more people to make that happen. Just the facts, man. I do see a lot of like mutual aid and a lot of just wanting to get together and basically meetings, meet and greet, support, friends groups. A lot of this is just getting together and getting to know each other, which we are working on. Like we've got a monthly business meeting for Metro Valley Pagan Pride that we're trying to do a hybrid version of so that people who are not necessarily in the local area can still participate. We've also got a craft meeting in St. Albans is where we host it through the libraries. So we're trying. Obviously, that's not great for people who are further out, but we are working on it. Come help us figure out what we need to do next. You know, like if you want to see something happen, then let's hear it. You know, in for a penny, in for a pound. So if you're really interested in participating and helping out, then you can join mvpaganpride.org. We've got 2 tiers. We got the $3 a month tier, which is for voting members, and basically that's just you get the newsletter as part of that. It comes out during the new moon, which means it's supposed to be out like yesterday, but it didn't get out yesterday. Hopefully it's out by the time you watch this. But yeah, so if you want to see more things happening in the pagan community, then you got to participate in the community. mvpaganpride.org. The $3 tier is for voters, people who you get your newsletter and you get the right to vote for things like our vice president, officers. And we're more likely to hear you if you talk about like wanting something to develop, like a program or something. Or if you wanted to try and needed the community support, that's a good way to get it. The second tier is the affiliates tier, which is for metaphysical professionals like myself. And for that, you get reduced site fee for Metro Valley Pagan Pride events, and you get the letter and a right to vote, and you get an ad in the paper. So that's what you get for being a member of Metro Valley Pagan Pride. Of course, it would be great if you can donate a couple dollars to AppalachianPaganMinistry.com. AppalachianPaganMinistry.com. And that is a singular ministry, not a double one. Just one ministry, not multiple ministries. AppalachianPaganMinistry.com. And then, of course, me, Dottie. You can find me at DOTTIE, I'm working on the website, but I did get some work done to it. Yay! Safe travel and much profit to you.